So I went from a 6 unit to a 52 unit. And I guess that was the big jump I made. And that was not as scary as I thought it was. And actually, once you get to that level, mainly it's in your head, growing like that. A lot of that scale is in your head, your limiting beliefs.
Welcome to the Real Estate Marathon Podcast, your guide in the race to financial freedom through real estate investing and sound financial practices. This podcast is for anyone interested in learning more about real estate investing, personal finances, and a new take on traditional retirement. Now, here are your hosts, Larry Fierro and Mike Moe.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Real Estate Marathon Podcast, your guide on the race to financial freedom through real estate investing and sound financial practices. My name is Mike Moe, one of the hosts of the show, joined in the usual fashion with Mr. Fierro. How you doing, man?
Mike, I am what can only be described as phenomenally fantastic.
That's a new one, man. Phenomenally fantastic. All right. Yeah. I don't know if I can beat that one.
Dude, I mean, Saturday at the MFIN Summit, I had such a great presentation with a lot of people that were asking some very good questions and, tried to get everything answered, tried to take care of them as best as possible. And, we were discussing owner financing, which you and I discussed a few episodes back.
Yeah.
And today's society, with the economy, you don't know what's going to happen with it one way or the other. Owner finance may become an option. That's the only option some people have because the banks may be tightening up their lending. Now they may be loosening it, but you never know. So next time that the banks tighten it, you'll be ready to go if you listen to that owner financing presentation.
Exactly. Even if they're not tightening it, it's a good option to have in your tool belt with owner financing. Good thing to be aware of and know when to use it. So
protect that already limited mortgages that you're able to get in before you go commercial.
Yeah, for sure, man. So, all right, we have a fantastic interview. I love this. This is one of the favorite shows of mine. We interviewed Mr. Vince Gethings, who is quite an established investor. He went from 1 to 120 units in 4 years, and has just got a ton of information on how he did it, how he scaled up, some mistakes that he made, so you can learn from those and hopefully avoid some of those yourself. But man, what a good interview with this guy.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to say this to him, but I was sitting there thinking the whole time we were listening to him, I was thinking this guy is in full on beast mode. He's not taking any guff from anybody. He's getting it done.
Yes. Yeah. It's man, this is a good one. I'm excited for the listeners to get a little taste of what Vince has been doing over the last 4 years.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you want me to jump into the warm up here?
Yeah, man, let's do it.
All right. The warm up, I decided to do commercial prop. Commercial property refers to real estate property that is used for business activities. Commercial property usually refers to buildings that house businesses, but it can also refer to land that is intended to generate a profit, as well as larger residential properties. Whoa.
Yeah, and the I guess the part of that definition that is most applicable to our conversation is that last part: larger residential property. So a lot of people don't assume a 20-unit apartment complex as commercial, because I think a lot of times they falsely attach commercial with just businesses like malls and strip malls and things like that. And Vince talked a lot about it in his interview with his matrix moment around why he started going commercial. Right, commercial is anything 5 units and up in multifamily. So if you're, buying a single family duplex, tri or quad, you're residential. And if you're buying, 5 units and up, it's commercial. And Vince talked about why he started going commercial because of how it's valued. It's not valued with comparable sales like your home is, or your duplexes and tris or quads are, where they have to, find a comparable sale within a certain time and radius of your location. And then that's what they'll base it off. Commercial properties are primarily based off how much money you're producing, what your NOI, your net operating income is out of that property, which is why he decided to make that transition. So you'll find out a little bit more about that exact story a little bit later in the interview.
Absolutely. I love commercial property because it gives you the most amount of control over the value of your own property. You're residential, you just have no control over it.
Yeah, for sure. You're at the whims of the market, really, to figure out what that thing is valued at. And to your point, commercial, you put a lot more control in it. So it's definitely a good option. So
All right. Well, you want to jump into the interview with Vince?
No, not yet, man.
I was hoping not.
We got one more thing for the listeners. So we decided to do a little giveaway. So as you guys know, ratings and reviews and comments and things like that on iTunes help tremendously to bring more awareness to the podcast and to help get this message out to more folks. So we are doing a giveaway for one giveaway a week for the next 5 weeks for the best review written. Anybody who writes a review on iTunes sends us a screenshot. We'll do a random drawing for that week, and we'll send you a free book. And that book is The Richest Man in Babylon by George S. Clayson. Now, this is considered the Bible of financial freedom. With that, you obviously know it's a good read, right? This is a 1926 read. It's the original version, but man, it's got some really basic, like time-tested principles on financial freedom, and it's a fantastic, pretty easy read. So we're going to be giving one of those away, one per week for the next 5 weeks for folks for a random drawing of people who do a rating or review on the podcast. So what you need to do. Well, first step is obviously leave a rating or review on iTunes. So you can do that by just going right over to iTunes player and, type in your comment and post that rating and review. Take a screenshot of that and send it to Larry at realestatemarathonpodcast.com. And then, like I said, one per week for the next 5 weeks, we'll randomly draw out of everybody who sent those in. And we'll send you that book free of charge. No shipping, no handling, nothing on your part. We'll just send you that good read for leaving that review.
Yeah, and The Richest Man in Babylon is 1926, but the nice thing about financial just concepts is they're timeless. I mean, the book is still relevant today, and that's why it's one of the most popular business financial freedom books still today.
Exactly. Yep. So again, go over to go to iTunes, leave a rating and review, send us that screenshot to Larry at realestatemarathonpodcast.com, and we'll hook you up.
Sounds good. Let's jump into the interview.
Man. Let's do it. All right, Vince Gethings, welcome to the Real Estate Marathon podcast, man. How you doing?
Great, Mike. How are you?
Fantastic, man. I'm super excited to dive into your story, man. We're going to get into how you started out scaling up, going from 1 to 120. Is that right?
Yes.
Nice.
That's where we're at now.
Awesome. Cool. But before we do that, you want to just give the listeners a little bit of background on who you are and how you got started?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am 31, I think. Maybe 32. I don't know. 31 or 32 years old. Married, 3 little kids, 7, 5, and 3. So that's probably why I don't even remember how old I am.
So you got plenty of time on your hands, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. I'm active duty military in the Air Force. I'm stationed on Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam in Hawaii. And I really don't have many hobbies. I do real estate most of my free time. And when I'm not doing that, I enjoy flying. I have my private pilot's license, and I have a small plane out here in Hawaii that's fun to fly around and visit the other islands. So when I get time, that's my hobby.
That's awesome. So I know Larry had a couple questions in here specifically just around the flying part. So that's a good caveat. Maybe we'll take this couple of minutes here, Larry. You can go ahead and use this time to do that now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I've always wanted to get my private pilot's license. How long does something like that usually take?
If you are committed, I've seen people do it in like 30 or 40 days. Like they completely block off their calendar. They take leave from work and they absolutely immerse themselves in it. And to me, after doing it, that's probably the best way to do it, because these skills are very perishable, especially when you're a student pilot. So if you try to do like the weekend warrior route of I'm going to fly 2 to 3 hours every weekend, it's going to take you like 6 months, because every time you get back in the plane, you have to like spend the first 30, 40 minutes like relearning what you forgot from last week. So if you immerse yourself in it, you can build those skills and those repetitions up very, very quickly. So if I had to do it again, that's how I would have done it. It took me about 6 months to do it, and about 60 hours, flying hours to complete it. When the people I've seen that completely immerse themselves, they can actually get it done in about 40, 45 hours.
Nice.
So that'd be my best advice for getting a license, is just clear your calendar, drop the $8,000 for instruction and airplane rental, and just knock it out all in one, because it'll be cheaper in the long run.
Oh, well, on a side note, Mike's probably going to be looking for a temporary co-host for the next 45 days. So if you're
I was just going to say, you're not working anymore, man. You better get on that.
Yeah. Officially financially free now. So that was good.
Oh, well, congrats.
Thanks. Well, that was pretty much what I was wondering. I was kind of curious what kind of time frame I was looking at, and I appreciate you answering that.
Yeah, it's definitely something you want to, like I said, knock it out quick. Don't try to string it along because, like I said, it'll take longer. And when anything you do with planes, it costs more. The more time it takes, so the more it's going to cost. So it's better just to write the big check up front, clear your calendar, and knock it out.
Nice.
There you go, man. Cool, man. So back to the regular scheduled programming. Let's talk about how you started out with real estate. How did you start investing for your financial freedom and getting into real estate? What did that look like?
So I started in the military. Let's go back a little bit. So in the military, it's very common for people that are into money, into budgeting and stuff like that, to be very heavy into stock markets rather than real estate, because stock markets is very mobile. Military, we're deployed a lot. We're doing temporary duty assignments and all over the world. So as long as we have an internet connection, you can trade stocks. So usually when you're deployed and stuff like that, you're making some extra money too. So it's very common for military members to be, some kind of swing traders, day traders, or just in the stock market. So that's what I did for about 7 to 8 years. And then I bought my first house in 2013 as the VA house hack, where you buy a single family house with your VA home loan, you move into it and you will flip it up. You flip it while you live in it. So I did that from 2013, sold that in 2016. And then by that time, and I realized that the stock market may not be where I want to be anymore. So I started getting into books like the Bigger Pockets book, Brandon Turner's books, and Rich Dad Poor Dad and all that. Like all those things started culminating, like you always hear. And I was like, okay, real estate's where we go. So I sold my single family house, took that seed money. And because I lived in it as my primary residence, it was tax-free, capital gains. And I took that and I started buying small multifamilies, duplexes, fourplexes, one right after another for it was like the first 13 units I bought was very quick succession. Within like 6 months, I bought my first 13 units.
Nice.
Wow. Nice.
That's funny. I think a lot of people try to play their hand in the stock market before they find real estate. I did kind of the same thing. I read a couple of value investing books and thought that was kind of like the way to go. And then I realized, man, you can get it perfectly right, and then the market still reacts poorly, and you got it wrong, right? So that's when I found real estate as well.
Exactly. And I read all the Warren Buffett books, all the Fisher books, all the whole value investing. I was all in it. Benjamin Graham, read them all. Yep. And then I read Random Walk Down Wall Street, and I was like, I'm just fooling myself. Nobody knows what's going on. Like it's all a game. Like nobody has control. And we can go down that road a little bit. It was like the last straw. And one of the questions is the aha moment or matrix moment, but one of them, which actually led me to liquidate all of my stocks, my IRAs, my retirement accounts, my brokerage accounts, everything was, I spent like 6 months investigating and looking into this green energy company, and everything looked good. The prospectus, the markets, all the industries that they were in, the supply, demand, everything of it was great. And turns out that the CEO and CFO were submitting falsified documents to the SEC. And once that broke, obviously the stock tanked, and I lost everything in that. And I was like, I just spent like 6 months out of all the the solar cities, the sun runs, the solar power, like all of them, making sure that this one company was the one. It turns out you have no control. Yeah. Like it's an illusion of control when you're in the stock market. Like you have no control over what the CEO does, the CFO, the board members. Like they're people on the other side of the world that can be doing whatever they want, and you have no control over them. And that's why that was like one of my aha moments. So like I need to have control over my destiny, my financial future. And I liquidated everything after that.
Nice. Now, your matrix moment as far as real estate, though, you said you had a couple of matrix moments. I'm assuming one of the matrix moments was that you decided and honed in on real estate, much like Mike and I have. What did that look like?
Absolutely. So the first one was between the stock market and real estate. The next one was between small multifamily and commercial multifamily. That was probably the biggest aha moment when, in a bad way, when I had one of my 4 units that I bought for $170,000. I put about 50 grand into it, raised rents around $150 per unit. The place looked great. It was like the best on the block, looked awesome. I went to get it appraised, and it appraised for $170,000. And I was like, what's going on? And then appraiser was like, well, it's a 4 unit, it's residential property, it's comp value. And there's no comps on this in this neighborhood. Like there hasn't been any, no duplex or fourplex or triplex sales in the last year. So I didn't have anything to go off of. So it's worth $170,000. So that was like, okay, I'm never going to buy a residential property again. I'm only going to do commercial properties from here on out. And then that's when I really started like getting serious about scaling and not doing the, buy a duplex here or fourplex here, at least in that market, just because there wasn't enough of them around to make a difference and to kind of do that play.
Nice. So before I want to talk about scaling up a little bit, obviously you decided to go from duplexes and 4 units onto bigger properties, but what did that first property look like? Were there any aha moments in that, or how did that first deal come about?
So the first deal was it was a 4 unit. So I took the seed money for my single family house. I was about 130 grand after everything. And I took that. So that made a pretty good amount of down payments on some of those smaller properties. And it was, I said, it was a 170,000 4 unit, put about 50 grand into it. It probably needed maybe 20 grand. So that was one of the mistakes I did was I thought that I was going to go in and make it the nicest place on the block, which I did. Doesn't mean that everybody was going to pay more. I ended up getting about $150 per unit rent bump, which was awesome. But I probably could have gotten that rent bump just by better management. All right, so it wasn't so much that I made the units look so good. It was just that I just managed it better than the person I bought it off of, and I probably would have got those rents anyway. So that was just over renovating unit was one of the things I did wrong. But yeah, it was a good deal. I don't regret that property at all. I think that is my sandbox property. I made a bunch of mistakes and I learned a lot of things about myself, about my systems. I built a lot of systems off of that property, but the mistakes I made didn't bankrupt me because it's still just a 4 unit, right? So it's not like I jumped into a 30 unit building where if you mess up and I'm out 100, 6-figure losses. Like I messed up and I lost 20 grand. It stung a little bit, but it's not like I'm not having to go back to work for 50 years to pay off that debt.
Or you're not sitting on the sidelines for 4 years trying to make up another down payment. I think a lot of people think start as big as you can, go as big as you can, as quick as you can. But I'm with you, man. I took some lumps on the first duplex I bought that was 10 or 15 grand miss on my part. But times that by 10, had I gone as big as possible, it would have put me out of the game for I don't know how many years, so it's good to take those lumps a lot smaller if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. So I said, I don't regret it at all. I tell people it's the sandbox properties, the coin term.
Yeah.
And I absolutely think that people should do that. And once they figure out, their strengths, their weaknesses, build some systems, get some proof of concept, then start scaling off that.
Now that fourplex, do you still own that? Are you still running that, or did you get rid of that and then jump right into the commercial multifamily?
I still have it, but it's under contract for selling it.
Nice. Were you able to recoup some of that money that you had put into it? Hopefully.
Yeah, I'm not going to be negative on it. It's just my return. I think. Trying to remember what the net sheet was on it for where I'm in contract on it now. I think my overall return on it is going to be like an 8% return. So, nothing sexy, but it's not negative anything. So
absolutely,
an 8% return over the last 4 years because of that. But then the subsequent properties I bought right after that, I'm going to have phenomenal returns on it because I immediately saw where I messed up on the first one and made sure I didn't make those mistakes again.
Nice. Now, you said it took you 4 years to go from 1 unit to 120 units. I'd like to discuss your first commercial multifamily property, because I think a lot of our listeners want to know how difficult it was to get into the commercial side of it, the larger properties.
Yes. So I did 19 units. So the first 13 were all small multifamilies. Okay. And then I bought a 6 unit, which is kind of still, technically it's commercial, but it's still kind of on the smaller side. So we can kind of skip that one and go right to the 52 unit. So I went from a 6 unit to a 52 unit. And I guess that was the big jump I made. And that was not as scary as I thought it was. And actually, once you get to that level, mainly it's in your head. Growing like that, a lot of that scale is in your head, your limiting beliefs. But once I realized that I could take down a 52 unit deal with a few partners, I went for it. And then that deal, because the income levels that you're dealing with, revenue levels, you can afford better systems. You can afford to hire higher quality management teams. You can afford to hire bookkeepers. So I actually spend less time on my 52 unit than I do on the smaller properties where I can't afford a bookkeeper. I can't afford all those the sophisticated management systems because the revenue is just not there. The economies of scale just aren't there. So once I had the confidence to do it and I had the mentorship that I went out and got and realized that or taught me the things I needed to get to make that jump. I had the confidence there. I had the mentors there behind me, making sure I didn't mess up too much. And the partnerships there, we jumped in, closed it, we took it down, and it's been a little bit rocky just because all the coronavirus stuff, but we're killing our business plan. Our original business plan that we started out with, we're absolutely crushing it.
That's awesome. You said something that I want to dive in a little bit. It's all in your head, right? It's all in kind of the thoughts and the mindset that you have in order to scale, right? And I remember thinking, with the first duplex, like it was insane. And there's so many things that I didn't know, I didn't think I could do. And then same thing when I started looking at bigger properties, like the first 90 unit, I put an LOI and I was like, a year prior, I wouldn't even fathom looking at a property that big, right? So what are the mindset changes that helps you scale, or like, what does somebody have to prepare for to go from that, those smaller units, those larger ones, more in the mindset?
Absolutely. So I'm a huge believer in, like, you have to shed your limiting beliefs and all the things that, you kind of adopt from various things, your friend, your peer group, or your parents, or all these things. Just try to get rid of those as quickly as possible. For me, it was mentorship definitely helped. I went out and got a mentor, and partnering. So not being honest with myself, my inner kind of doing the reflection of, this is what I'm good at and this is what I'm bad at. I need to find a partner that's good at the things I'm bad at. And I need to, like, kind of shed my ego of, like, I need to control everything. Everything must be mine. I need to make every decision and all that stuff. Once you kind of get rid of that and find some partners that have the same values, the same goals, the same timeline as you, that's what really helped us scale very quickly. Like I said, we closed that 52 unit. I can give you a timeline on that. So in fall of 2018, October 2018 was when I realized that I'm never going to do another residential property again. I went out, got education, got some mentorship from people that were crushing it in commercial. In January 2019, we were under contract on that 52 unit.
Nice.
So that's how fast that can go. If you get out from your ego, get out from your limiting beliefs, partner with people that are high speed, have the same goals, values that you do, and timeline that you do, you can scale. It's like neck breaking how fast you can grow. And it's not just growing like haphazardly. The confidence that you have in your ability to execute when you do these things was very reassuring as well. And I give you an example, like when you start surrounding yourself with people that are at those higher levels, and all of a sudden they start telling you ideas and tips and stuff, and you're like, wait a second, I was thinking that exact same thing last week. Like the amount of confidence, like he's like, this guy has 1,000 units and he's telling me things I'm like that I wrote down of like systems that I'm going to implement, and I'm like, oh crap, I'm there, like I'm thinking the way that these guys are thinking. So that was a really big confidence booster of like my ability to actually execute and don't have like that imposter syndrome that a lot of people get. Man, I don't deserve this. I can't do this. They kind of have the self-doubt feelings.
How big of a role was the mentorship in that process?
Huge. So going from the 13, or at the time it was like 20 units, 2018 to the 52 was absolutely huge. I was at a plateau in my investment career and like my life. Like I got to 20 units very quickly, and it was all by myself. So it was like 18 months from the 1 unit to the 20 units. And that was the fall of 2018. But then I hit a complete plateau. Like I couldn't figure out I knew I was doing something wrong, but I couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong. I couldn't find any, like my leads dried up, my financing dried up, my system started like reaching like critical mass of like how much my current systems could handle. My time was starting to get sucked up more because I'm overcompensating for my weak systems and processes. So I knew I was doing something wrong, but I didn't know what it was. So that's when I started reaching out and getting a bunch of referrals of like, hey, where did you go to get to where you're at? Where'd you get your education? And then I found an awesome group, got in with them. And like I said, it scaled very quickly from the fall of 2018 to 2019, January 2019. I completely blew through that ceiling I was stuck under.
That's awesome, man. And you said a really good point there too. Get referrals too, because there's a lot of gurus out there that will sell you $1,000 course and you don't get crap for it. But then again, there's a lot of really, really beneficial groups and courses and people to be around in the same space. So it's hard to tell those apart sometimes. So getting referrals is really, really huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've had a couple of, big name ones, and I talked to them, they're people. And then I talked to the referrals of past students and they're like, it's good. A lot of it's like, the videos are good, but you're not really getting that engagement and stuff like that. So then they're like, there's like, you kind of feel like read between the lines, like what they're saying, what they're not saying, when you're talking to them about referrals. So that's when I did that to pretty much all the ones that are out, and I ended up landing with an awesome one, and no regrets of the choice I made.
Yes.
Nice. Now you're in Hawaii you're stationed in Hawaii, and I'm assuming that not all of your rental properties are in Hawaii. What areas of the country or what areas do you invest in, and how important was it to find partners that were in the same area?
Very good question. So being in the military, this is one thing I think I did right off the bat. Being in the military, I knew that I was always going to be moving. So I didn't want to start accumulating real estate where I was at and then have to move again and then have to move another 3 years after that and 3 years after that, and just have like property sprinkled around the country, because there's no economies of scale there. It's, a lot of different systems you have to stand up. So what I did was I picked one place, and that was mid-Michigan. And that's where I started. I built all of my systems there. So I found a colleague there that could help be my boots on the ground, my eyes and ears on the ground there. I had a good agent there. I found a good property manager there. And then I started building that team up and that portfolio up. And then when I scaled to the large multifamily, we did buy the 52 unit in Michigan. And then now we have since moved down to El Paso and had put up a new team down there. So my entire business and all the three businesses that I have are all built around out-of-state investing, around building effective, high-performance teams in those markets on the ground there. With that, I am the COO, the operations lead for all the companies. So we don't have like boots on the ground that's part of our team. So I manage everybody from 4,000 miles away. We don't have partners on the ground. We have the property managers, the contractors, and everybody, and I'm managing them from here. So that is a little different than most people's structures.
Yeah, that's interesting. You hear a lot of people say almost required boots on the ground, right? So yeah. Was that a difficult, system to set up without having somebody like you could like on your team you could truly trust there? Or how did you navigate that?
So the way I envision it in my head is kind of like a Venn diagram. the circles that kind of overlap. And when I build the system, I hire each person or bring them onto the team, give them my expectations and everything like that. And then say, for example, I have a lead on a property, and I'll send my property manager over there, my agent over there, my broker over there, and then my colleague. And when I say colleague, it's not a partner. It's usually somebody I know, like another investor that I know from just networking. And I'm like, hey, you want to make $200 today? Like, go over here to this property, take some videos, take some notes, and we'll debrief after. But they need to know multifamily, and I'll circle back around to that. So they all kind of descend. There's 3 people descend on a property, and they each are looking at that property through their own lens. For example, the agent is looking at the property with the lens of how much is this place worth? What's the neighborhood like? What's the price per square foot? Like, what are some of the things that we can maybe knock the price off of? Like, kind of just like a normal agent, right? They're looking at it from a lot about the price standpoint. The property manager, they're looking at it from the lens of a property manager. They're gonna be like, I'm gonna have to manage this place. Here's everything I see wrong with it. Here's some things we can change. Here's things I see that they're doing wrong. That I see a lot of pets around or whatever it is, because they're going to have to manage it. So they look at that lens of managing this place. And then the investor or the colleague I send over there, I pick somebody that I know I can trust their testimony on, and they know multifamily real estate. I'm not going to send like a house flipper over to walk a 100-unit property. Like, they need to know multifamily real estate, but they're going to go through with the lens of an investor. They're going to say, here's all the CapEx, here's all the deferred maintenance. There's a crackhead living in number 7. There's trash everywhere. You're going to want to get that person out of there. Here's all the things, the value adds or the opportunities I see. Here's a strategy or 2 that I think I would do if I was going after this. And this happens over about 2 or 3 hours of that initial walkthrough. And they will all report back to me. I close everything off, and I'm just debriefing for like 2-3 hours. They all call in, shoot me their videos, their pictures they took. And without even being there, I have a pretty good sense. And that's where the Venn diagram comes in. All their stories and stuff kind of overlap. And now I have a very good picture of how this property is current physical condition, its current operational condition. What are some of the value add things I can look for when I'm underwriting, and to the point where between that, getting the financials, I can put together a pretty good LOI, send it with confidence. And if they accept it, then I do the PSA, and then that's when I actually fly to the market and look at the property. And that's mainly how I buy stuff.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think buying out of state forces you to have good systems, right? Because it's not in your backyard. You can't go check on it all the time, and it really forces you to do that. And I love you have the property manager who's going to eventually manage the property, go give you your opinion. Because if they give you a bad opinion, well, it's their headache that they're dealing with.
Absolutely.
Right. So they're
not gonna sugarcoat anything for you, because they're gonna be the ones fixing it.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's awesome.
Nice. Now, scaling up, what would you say was the key system that you really needed to implement that helped your growth the most?
The key system that helped my growth the most, I think we call them weekly pulse checks. Mm-hmm. So we do a weekly call with our property managers, and we go over everything from leasing to balance due to rent roll changes to current collections, week by week current rent collections. We go over any kind of work orders that are in place, any kind of CapEx projects that are in place, any really just anything that needs to be talked about. But the point is just that weekly engagement, and that really keeps our property managers on their toes. And we usually do it Monday or Tuesday. So they close out the week on Friday. They know on Monday they're going to have to answer for a lot of these, or they're going to have to answer for all of these items. So they're going to make sure that all the numbers are updated, and they have, alibis, so to speak, for wherever the projects they're working on. And having that accountability there has really helped us. I wouldn't say grow as a sense of going unit wise, but grow in the sense of being able to execute our business plans very, very efficiently.
Vince, you ever get any pushback from property managers who don't want that weekly call? I know a handful of them that I've spoke with, like, no, you're just supposed to, collect checks, and in 6 months, if we got an issue, I'll talk to you. But I think a lot of them aren't used to like hands-on owner who want that like weekly update, right? Are you ever getting pushback from the property managers you were dealing with first?
Absolutely. One property manager said that they absolutely weren't going to do it. Another property manager took it in stride. They're like, absolutely, let's roll with it. That's an awesome idea. Our latest property manager, at first, he was very apprehensive. He was getting kind of agitated. He was like, you guys are micromanaging me. This is crazy. And stay calm. Don't go back and like, I'm the boss, whatever. I'm the owner. Like, not the way to do it. Check your ego and just go in and just explain, like, this is why I'm doing it this way. This is why I'm putting in these systems. This is why we have these accountability checks. And once you tell them the why around it, it was a lot better, and haven't really had any issues yet or since.
Well,
Nice.
I would imagine that doing it on a weekly basis allows you to correct problems before they escalate into major problems. So.
Absolutely. And that's one of the points that we want to see. We don't want to wait until we get a monthly statement or a quarterly statement to realize that, 4 people skip town and we have 4 vacancies we got to flip. Like, how am I supposed to budget for that? Or how am I supposed to build my budget if I don't even know that there's 4 vacancies that we have to turn now? And so stuff like that, like just being able to explain it, like as an owner, this is the stuff I have to think about. This is the planning I have to do to think ahead the next month, the next quarter, the next year. And this is why I need this current information.
Yeah, and this is where it comes, like, you're not buying just a property, you're buying a business, and you should be treating it as such, right? Yeah. And if you can't predict with a reasonable amount of accuracy where you're going to be in a month and in the next quarter, then you're not running a very tight ship. So those weekly calls will definitely help you do that. So,
and there's one more point though. So it's not all the salt on it. It's the way we counteract that and incentivize positively is putting in incentive structures of milestones that if they hit the milestones, they will get bonuses. So if they keep economic occupancy above a certain threshold for, 3 months, a whole quarter, then they'll get another 1 to 2% bonus. If they close out a year with the T12 NOI above, this number that we defined, they get another, 1 to 2% bonus. So that could be huge. And when we're talking about, NOIs of, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, a 1%, 2% bonus just for keeping the NOI higher, which isn't going to be that hard if we have those weekly calls. Because like I said, what Larry said, you can catch, things slipping very quickly and fix them and right that ship and revector it. So once we institute that, a lot of that pushback kind of went away.
And you're doing this all with third-party property managers, is that correct?
Yes.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. Aligning the interests. It's kind of the reverse of what property managers are used to keeping fees in my market a lot of times, where if they late rent, they'll keep the fees and that goes to the property manager. Well, the flip side of that is exactly what you're doing. Like, no, let's align interest and you get paid when we get paid. And if you collect, if you're 100%, collected by the 15th, then you get a bonus. And instead of incentivizing you to collect rent late, like let's align it a little bit better. So that's awesome. On the systems front, man, are there any things that you started with that either slowed you down or were kind of a waste of time, systems that you tried to implement that just didn't make sense for your business model or where you were at the time? Yeah.
So the one that we've kind of regretted is third-party laundry services. We've read a few books of like getting these third-party laundry services. They'll put their own machines in, they collect the coins, they manage the machines, and there's some kind of equity or split of the cash flow. And it sounds great in theory, but the execution, at least the company we went to, which was a very big company, it's a national company, has kind of been pretty bad. So going forward, we're going to be keeping laundry in-house and developing a laundry system, maybe get a local like service contract with some kind of appliance supplier or something like that, and just coming up with a system to manage the the cash flow or the coins and everything like that. But yeah, the third party system for laundry has kind of been a bust for at least our experience.
Yeah. Now you're at 120 doors right now. Is there a number in your head that's of doors that you want to achieve? And you'll say, once you get that number, you're going to be very impressed, I guess, or very happy with your success.
Yeah, I think for me right now, it's between 200 and 250. Mm-hmm. And that's net doors to me. So not, the big ego number of here's all my syndication doors and here's all my JV doors and they're all added together. Yeah. It's just my net doors of my share and all of my ventures to be around that 200 door mark.
Have you achieved your financial independence number? So when you get out of the military, is it something that you're never going to have to go find a full-time job and just lead that lifestyle?
In a way, yes. So the way I envision this is not just one number, but like milestones. And that's how I've been building my personal vision and strategy going forward for my family, is setting milestones up of okay, the first milestone is maybe replacing what my retirement income would be if I stayed in the military to get the full 20-year pension. And that was like that 20 door, my first 20 doors. So the first 20 doors that I hit, I was like, okay, well, now I don't have to stay in the military to retirement because I just replaced my pension, what my pension would be. So that was like my first milestone. The next one was like, okay, well now my base pay, I think was like $5,000 is around $5,000 a month. So that's my next milestone. So $5,000 of free cash flow a month. And that's going to be the number that replaces like kind of like my W-2 base pay. And then the next one will be my total W-2, which is my base pay plus all my allowances and everything else I get, my healthcare and everything like that. And that number was about $8,000 a month. So that'll be the next milestone. I'm almost there. And then the next one after that is now we're getting into lifestyle milestones. Right? Because then there's like, okay, so the $5,000 a month, I can pretty much live, in most Midwest states and not be homeless and hungry and, all that. I'll be living.
Maybe not beachside in Oahu.
definitely not beachside Oahu, but I have the basics covered if I'm living in, most of the Midwest states. So then the $8,000 is to replace where I'm at right now. It is to fully replace my W-2. And then the next one would be like, okay, $10,000 is maybe this lifestyle. And then the $20,000 a month would be, the all out, traveling the world and having that beach house in Florida or whatever is that 20 to 25,000 a month. So that's the way I envision it, is just not so much which one number, but different milestones of freedom. So gotcha. In a way, I have replaced my military pension and my base pay. So 2 of my milestones hit. The last one is my overall military compensation number, which is $8,000 a month, which should be coming soon.
Nice.
Yeah, it's smart to chunk it up like that, man. I think a lot of people starting out, they're looking at the financial freedom, financial independence, and it just seems so daunting, especially if you're high income earner. It's like, how do you ever go from zero to try to replace all of that income with passive income? It just seems like a crazy Everest to climb. And having those like little milestones, like a lot of people do it, like basic living expenses, to your point, like rent, food, mortgage. Like if I can cover that with passive income, then you get a little bit of breathing room, and then you're not just like as handcuffed to that paycheck as you were previously. So it's good to chunk it up like that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. It's you see that a lot in people that do like physical goals. Like I don't need to run 26 miles tomorrow. I need to run a 5K. Yeah. And then once I do that, then I can run, a 10K. Then I can run whatever the next milestone is, 15, 10 miles or something. So that's kind of how I envision, is like using that milestone as just chunking it down. It's way better on your psyche. You said not as daunting and discouraging to do it that way. Definitely helps you keep motivated.
That's awesome. Where do you guys see yourself in the next year? Do you guys syndicating deals? You just partnering on deals, taking deals down yourself? And where do you want to grow in the next year?
So we actually just did our first syndication There's a 48 unit in El Paso, and it closed on 15 April, right in the middle of coronavirus.
Nice.
So that gave us a huge amount of confidence in our business model and our team's ability to perform in high stress situations, because everywhere we looked, people were pulling out of deals, and we were able to actually negotiate a better deal. In every aspect of it. The financing got better, the price got reduced, we got a seller credit at closing. So it was an awesome experience to learn to scale up from partnerships to syndication, and then having that stress test of doing it during a global pandemic and still be able to close the deal and get it across the finish line. And then seeing that, now we're 2 months later, and the deal is just absolutely crushing it. We're 6 months ahead of schedule on executing our business plan, and it's been absolutely phenomenal the last 2 months. So going forward, I'm looking to get another 100 to probably 150 doors in the next 12 months.
Nice. That's so good, man. You talked about a global pandemic, which, to your exact point, tons of people were using that as excuses to pull out of deals and to not make things happen. And you used it to your benefit to negotiate a sweeter deal and to get even more upside in that deal. So yeah, that's awesome.
Well, I think, this has been phenomenal, Vince. I really do appreciate you coming up and getting on the call with us, because a lot of our listeners are trying to get to where you're at with the syndications, and every bit of information we give them is a bit of information that'll help them out.
Yeah, absolutely. So I will say, after doing my first syndication, I would not advise somebody to just jump in and do syndication. I know, like, back to our point with the guru programs, that there's plenty of them out there. They're like, hey, your first deal, here's the playbook for syndication. I've done 10 deals before this syndication. I still was taking a school on a couple things. And I stayed calm, cool, collected, and leaned into the issues and got them solved. But if I was brand new and maybe this was like my second deal or third deal, I would have been crazy. So although syndication, it is, high, and a more advanced strategy, I think it's, it's a tool to get a deal done, but it's not like the pinnacle. It's not like, I don't picture it as like a pyramid with syndications on top. I think of, as a toolbox, and syndication just one tool that you can use if that deal is the right deal to get that done. Use syndication. If the deal says, if the numbers work and you can do a partnership, do a partnership. Do a JV, do a seller financing structure. So you want to be versed in all of these strategies and employ them like tools, not as advancing up a ladder where syndication's at the top. I don't think that after doing it, I said I will do more syndications, but I'm not going to only be doing syndications. If the right deal comes along and syndication is the right tool for the job, that's what I'll use.
Yeah, you make a good point, man. I think a lot of people look at the syndication as like the utmost, like I got it free, like other people's money. Why won't I do it? But it's such a different strategy, right? And there's so much more to it, so many more moving pieces. So
exactly. If I can close a deal using a partnership with 2 or 3 people, absolutely, it's way easier doing it that way if you have the means to do it.
Yeah, less cook syndication for sure. So, but yeah, man, like Larry said, we really appreciate you coming on and telling your story, man. Going from 1 to 120 like you did, and in the way you did is really impressive. And I think that people can get a ton from this. So, before we end it, man, you want to just give the little folks a list of where to find out more about you and kind of where they can connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So LinkedIn, I'm finally firing up my LinkedIn account for the first time in like 3 years. So I'm on LinkedIn. You can message me there. We have the Honolulu Multifamily and More meetup group. So that's on Facebook. So Facebook, Honolulu Multifamily and More. That's our platform for just sharing, free knowledge, no pitch environment. Really awesome group there. For our company, it's tricityequity.com. That's where you can find out more about what we're currently doing, what deals we have in the pipeline, what our portfolios, what our investment strategy is. You can go to tricityequity.com and you can click like the connect with us. We have one of my partners, Duke. just wrote a guide. It's like a 30-page guide for passive investors, not so much for passive investors, but for professional people that may have some money to deploy, but they're not sure what side of the fence they're on. They're like, I really like real estate, but I don't know if I want to do all the work. Maybe I want to be an LP. Maybe I want to be a GP. So he wrote this guide to kind of help guide you through that thought process of the best way for you to get into real estate investing, specifically multifamily. So you can go to TriCityEquityGroup.com and get that, or just connect with us. There's like a form you can fill out there as well.
Awesome. Cool, man. Well, like Larry said, man, we really appreciate you coming on here and giving the listeners a piece of your brain and letting them learn from you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for having me on, Mike and Larry.
Yeah, thanks, Vince.
Take care.
All right, man. How about that? Vince Gethings just dropping knowledge.
Yeah, he's been. We've had a lot of great guests on our show. He's definitely up towards the top of my favorites because he just had so much knowledge, and he was just a great guest. And let's be honest, he's a private pilot, and that's kind of what I want to do. So
yeah, that's awesome. Yep. So, but very, very relatable, man. Obviously what he did is impressive, but it's repeatable and relatable. So it's, he gave you the kind of the blueprint as far as like what he did, and a lot of good learnings that people can take and kind of see how they can weave it into their goals and their plans. So tons of info on that one. That was a good one.
Yeah, it was a spectacular interview. So definitely want to have him back in a year or so and see where he's at.
Yeah.
Follow up with it.
Yep.
So what do you think about a call to action?
Well, call to action, man. So Vince talked a lot about systems, right? And how those were really the backbone of what allowed him to scale, right? So I think that's the call to action, man. Look at what systems that you have in place today, whether it's in your business, whether it's in your asset management or your real estate business today, or even if you don't have any units, if you don't have anything under contract, but you're anything under management, but you're looking to purchase units and scale up, you still need systems. Like, what are you doing daily what's your system to stay in contact with brokers? What's your system to your deal flow, system? So like really, if you don't have any of these systems and you're not treating your real estate like a business, and you need to start looking at how can you operationalize your goals, right? So look at your systems, figure out what you need to implement and what you need to kind of fine tune if you have something in place, but maybe they're not getting you the results.
Yeah, and systems are a huge part of what you need to do, because you can't do everything yourself. You have to get those systems in place. If you want to get that financial freedom going on, you got to be able to make money while you're out camping like I am right now.
Exactly. Yeah, man. And, Robert Kiyosaki talks a lot about in his books about how businesses are just a chunk of systems all together that are working for your goals, right? It's you're running your business kind of haphazardly and you don't have these things in place, then you're not going to be able to get to your goals as fast as, or even potentially at all. So look at your systems. Even if you're a small operation with no properties right now, you still need systems. It's still important. So look at those, assess what you need, and start implementing them.
Absolutely. So I just wanted to remind everybody to go leave that rating review, take the screenshot, send it to me, Larry, at Real Estate Marathon Podcast. We'll pick a winner one a week for the next 5 weeks for Richest Man in Babylon. Excellent.
Heck yeah. Love that book. Yep. It's a classic, timeless book. So
it is. That's everything I've got, my friend.
Same, man. All right, cool. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Real Estate Marathon Podcast. We'll see you next time.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Real Estate Marathon Podcast. If you found value in any of the content from this show, consider supporting us in the following ways. Subscribe to the Real Estate Marathon Podcast. Leave a rating and review. Continue the conversation with like-minded individuals on social media by heading over to the Real Estate Marathon Podcast Facebook group, or follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Real Estate Marathon Podcast.